Keys to the Commonwealth, a podcast where we share the real stories of local community members who are using real estate to build personal wealth, along with tips and tricks from professionals across the industry. And now, your host, Landry Fields.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. As an insurance advisor, I work with real estate investors and professionals every day, and I'm very excited for today's guest. He is the Director of Acquisitions and Operations for Urban Renewal Partners. Although he's only been in the real estate business for 2 years, his greatest accomplishment so far was recently acquiring a 37-unit mixed-use deal right here in Lexington, Kentucky. Born and raised all the way over in Huntington Beach, California, he received his degree from San Diego State University and now resides here in Lexington, Kentucky. I am stoked to welcome Dylan Palmer today to the Keys to the Commonwealth studio. Dylan, my man, thanks for coming on the show.
Landry, thank you for having me. I love this. This is my first live podcast.
First live podcast? You've done like a video one before or something like that? I just can't do the video one. I'm like, I need people there. I'm done with as much Zoom as I can for right now.
It definitely, just from being here for a very short time, it's definitely, I think it's a better vibe, right?
So yeah, like we start every episode, jump back in the DeLorean and kind of tell me how'd you end. I know it's a cool story. I've kind of heard it. Tell us, how'd you get into the industry as far as real estate investing and so forth, or even to Lexington for that matter?
Yeah, so we can go through all of that. My story really starts when I was, born and raised in Huntington. My parents, over the last 20 years, have acquired about 6 single-family homes.
Okay. There in Cali?
So one's in California, in La Quinta, California, so it's in the desert. Okay. And then 5 are over in Marco Island, Florida.
Okay.
So that's where they met originally. And it's kind of one of those very southwest tip of Florida where my dad, he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 20 years ago. And
the original Bible right there.
Right, exactly. And he started investing. And it was all single-family homes, I would say he's more conservative in nature, to where he didn't want to risk a bunch of capital, and it was at the right time.
So you kind of grew up around it a little bit in some respects.
Yeah, very seldom. So I when you hear that, you'd think that I would grow up, okay, this is real estate investing, this is kind of what we do, but it was never really forced upon me. I was never really a part of it. I always knew my parents invested in real estate, but they always wanted me to, pursue my own passion,
sure,
right, and to do my own thing. Never really pushing real estate for me to be involved in any way. Now, since I always knew it was there, I always had some kind of interest in it. And it wasn't until, let's say 14 or 15 when my dad gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
And I read it and I'm like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And growing up, I always had a very analytical, mathematical background. I always enjoyed math, numbers. For some reason, it just makes sense to me.
And for those who don't know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's kind of the first book you got to read when looking into real estate investing. Remind me if I'm correct, it's a fictional book based upon a real life story kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
So
it's kind of, yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki is the author.
That's his name.
And it basically, if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil everything.
Or you could play the board game, which
right.
I played the board game, and honestly, if you just play the board game, that's a master's class in business right there, just playing that board game. So just play that board game, and you will learn a master's class in kind of business type of scenario, like right there.
It's so true, and if a little peek behind the curtain of my life, right?
Okay.
My dad always talked about that game, but we never played it, right?
Okay.
And the reason why we never played it is we never got it, and you know why we didn't get it? Because it was like $80. It's a very expensive game, So it's definitely an investment. But I got it for him for Christmas last year.
And then the other problem was finding anybody to play it with you, because it's like not the average person wants to play that game for sure.
It's so funny because I love it.
Yeah.
It is very fun. It's very simple, and anyone can play it. My little brother, he's 17, and just to watch him play the game and begin to understand that what's a doodad, right? And why would I want to buy a boat?
Yeah.
It's just the whole mindset shift of, you can kind of go back to single family homes. Over the last 20 years, they've been able to, net between $100 and $200 a door.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, single family homes aren't going to give you that financial freedom that all these gurus tell you about that you can get through real estate investing.
It takes a large scale to do it, for sure.
Exactly. And that's where my parents, now that they're 20 years into it, their balance sheet is the balance sheet of a single family home is awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you're in it for, is to grow your balance sheet.
Sure.
But
more of a retirement, like a diversification of your retirement portfolio in some ways, which is fine if people want to do that. You know, I know a lot of tax people say just having one or two rentals in general is just a good way to hedge through your retirement and so forth.
Right, and grow your balance sheet, and it really is. And it's one strategy. There's so many different strategies in real estate, and it's very easy. I remember when I was, first getting involved and learning these different strategies. It's very easy to get pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah.
Every podcast that I would listen to, it's like, wow, that's what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And then you listen to a new one, and you're like, okay, that's what I want to do. But it's kind of finding your unique situation and really, applying to what you want in life. So single family homes is great for building a balance sheet. It's great to get your feet wet. It's great to start to understand the process of real estate investing. But that next step is going bigger.
Sure.
Right. And that's where you really see the implications of your income being able to grow and being able to live off that income and being able to achieve that financial freedom that everyone talks about is through, getting bigger and specifically, commercial real estate.
And we'll talk about kind of the way those are assessed and kind of what the strategies around that are definitely a lot different. But going back to pulled in many different directions, getting into real estate, so how did you get into real estate? You said easy to get pulled in different directions. Was it easy getting pulled to Lexington, Kentucky, I guess is the question I would have for you there.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So, in short, I had a decision to make. I studied abroad in Europe my junior year of college. Yeah. And I always told myself my freshman, sophomore, and junior year that, okay, once my junior year spring semester is over, once I go to Europe, I'm going to, keep my head down, focus on what's next, because, it becomes crunch time by your senior year. And when I came home from Europe, I said, okay, how can I meet as many people as I can and learn about the industry? Because I love it. Mm-hmm. I initially was in physics when I first went to college.
Okay.
I went to college down in San Diego, and it just wasn't my crowd. I didn't have, I didn't really, gel with the people that were around me. I didn't really enjoy the content as I did when I was in high school. So I jumped ship and I went to finance. And right when I got into finance, I knew that that was for me. Being able to take a company and evaluate its income, its expenses, mm-hmm. its balance sheet, its income statement, and being able to work backwards to find a good price to buy a public company. And it was all about stocks. But it was about my junior year when I was, I kind of made that bridge to real estate. And I had this aha moment where it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
When you're looking at a commercial asset, right? If you're looking at, let's say, a multifamily building, you're looking at the income. You're looking at the expenses. You're looking at the balance sheet. You're looking into the company, because at the end of the day, in its most simplest form, commercial real estate is you're buying a business. Sure. And can you create additional streams of income? Can you increase the income? Can you decrease the expenses in order to make a return?
Yeah.
And at what price point are you able to make a return that is satisfactory for yourself?
So going into, you moved to Kentucky. I mean, so real quick, so you came out here to work for the Urban Renewal, and just briefly touch on what you all are doing with that.
Yeah. So I met a gentleman named Robert Lee, and Robert Lee is big in the medical private equity space. Okay. And that was after I, came back from Europe. And what happened is, he was just starting a multifamily arm. And I was really interested. I'm like, okay, I can learn, I can underwrite. I can be able to value deals. And he brought me on as an acquisitions guy. Okay. Saying I didn't have the capital to get into a deal. And when you're going into real estate, it's either you have the capital or you have the time. And I had the time. Yeah. And I devoted all of my time to learning how to underwrite, evaluate deals, talking to brokers, understanding markets. And we started very broad. So we were Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, all the major, southeastern markets. Sure. And it took me 9 months. It took me in my first year, $140 million worth of deals underwritten with nothing to show for it. And it wasn't until 9 months later when we found a deal here in Lexington, Kentucky. Okay. And it was April, and we got it under contract. I remember, just distinctly that it was Friday afternoon. My buddies were coming over. I was very fortunate to where I lived right on the sand, like when I walk out of my front yard.
Okay.
And we had an investor who had a 1031 exchange, and
Right.
It was that last Friday was the cutoff date. So we had to get offers out. So we had 2 offers out, and it was before noon. And and my buddies were starting to come over, and they started, they were hanging out, partying on the beach, and music was on, and I had to leave my house because I had to get this offer out, right? And it was this building here in Chevy Chase in Lexington, Kentucky.
Okay.
And I could have made a very easy decision of like, okay, hey, this is a tomorrow thing, right? Let me have some fun right now.
Sure.
We already have 2 offers out. This is enough. Nothing's going to happen from it. It's been 9 months. Nothing's happened, right? But for some reason, I had the discipline to get up and leave and write the LOI, and within 2 hours it was accepted. And won a contract in April. I graduated in May, and come July, I had a decision of whether or not I wanted to learn the business from 3,000 miles away in California, or if I wanted to hop in my car, drive across the country, and learn how the sausage is made on site here in Lexington.
To be honest, though, I mean, what did you know about Lexington, Kentucky prior, or had you even heard of Lexington, Kentucky, or just knew it was bourbon country or something? I don't even know.
I'm going to sound so Californian.
That's fine.
It's like horses.
Okay.
Right. It's I know the bourbon is from Kentucky.
Sure.
And I know that I used to use the word podunk. I don't think
We definitely have some areas like that.
And that's where it's like, but since being here, it's amazing. Like the amount, the people, the culture, the quality of life. It has kind of blown me away, because Kentucky is, it kind of is a secret, especially Lexington. Like you would think that it would be,
especially Lexington. It's got this unique, and I know, the urban service boundaries, and it's like they've done super well at keeping the feel of like the horse country. I mean, like we've talked about on this podcast before, you can drive, 5-10 minutes and then all of a sudden be out in beautiful countryside areas of horse farms and so forth. So
and it is
beautiful. It's always interesting for me hearing people that are not from Kentucky come in and kind of validate. Honestly, like I've said before here as well, that like it took me traveling outside Kentucky to kind of realize what we already had here. When you grow up here, you don't really.
Every day of the first 3 months that I was here, I was learning something new.
Yeah.
Right. And there's, I didn't even know what the real horse business was when I first moved here.
Yeah, I didn't find out until I was older and kind of put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, wait a minute, the money's not made from the races.
Right. I know. And that's where it's like, okay, well, like there are so many different nuances about Kentucky, just like that you wouldn't expect. And
he's wearing a bourbon hat right now, so he's all in here. Right. I can attest to that.
And I finally made it out to the Buffalo Trace distillery, and I got the full tour, and I'm like, I gotta rep the brand.
There you go. So, underwriting deals and so forth. Obviously, there's a lot different underwriting kind of characteristics that go into looking at multifamily or multi-use opportunities or properties compared to just the single family side of things. So, kind of talk to me a little bit. What we're looking at in that respect, as far as what does it take going into looking at a multifamily unit. It's probably a multifamily unit, but because it gets probably a little bit more in the weeds with the multi-use stuff. But
so we could touch on just multifamily in general first, and specifically commercial real estate. When you are looking to invest in commercial real estate or looking to begin investing in commercial real estate, the keys, right, per se, are really held in the broker's hands to begin with, in order to not only learn, but also the brokers. They've lived here. Almost 100% of them have been usually born and raised in the area. They're very local. They've seen
for Urban Renewal, that is.
Just in general.
Okay.
Yeah. So in general, Urban Renewal Partners is just a group of, it's me and 3 other partners.
Okay.
And one is big in the medical space, private equity. One is big in, he's an industrial broker down in South Carolina, and the other one owns his own solar company.
Okay.
So Robert Lee, he's the one who initially kind of brought me on. And he was born and raised here in Lexington.
Okay.
Right. So he went over to school.
So when you took him that deal, was he like pretty excited about that? Like putting two and two together there from his old hometown.
Yeah, it was. It was perfect.
Yeah,
and it was. And it worked out really well.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because now I'm like living here, and he moved away 20 years ago with Lexmark, so he hasn't been back, but he comes here quite often. But to kind of go back to the multifamily aspect, they're going to be getting something called, you're going to be getting financials.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to be getting a T12 and a rent roll. Usually when you have a single family home or a duplex, like you'll
what's
just
the
get
T12?
So a T12 is the trailing 12 months profit and loss statement of the asset.
Okay.
So you have your top line revenue, which is, your rental income. Then you have your other income, whether it's, a lot of these Class A buildings now have, valet trash, right? Or you have your RUBS, which is your utility bill back system. Or you have other income like pet rent, right? Yeah. Or pet fees.
Sure.
Right. So you have those top line income items, and then you have your expenses, right? Which is going to be your taxes. It's going to be your repairs and maintenance. It's going to be your insurance. It's going to be your utilities. It's going to be your management.
Yep.
And what happens is you bring that down to what's called an NOI, a net operating income, net operating income.
NOI, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And those are, a lot more.
The NOI, just from what I know so far, learning all this stuff, the NOI is basically all the expenses excluding any kind of mortgage type of thing, right?
Right, not including the debt service.
Yeah.
So it's looking strictly at the building, not the financing. And once you have the NOI, you're able to value the building.
Yeah.
And that's the most subjective or abstract part of the business. And that's where only repetition and understanding the market and communicating with brokers, they're able to gain that knowledge. Yeah. Now what that is the valuation tool is called a cap rate. Now, cap rate is, it gets really confusing very fast. So I like to use the income multiple.
Okay.
Right. So what the income multiple is saying is that you have your income, you have your expenses, which leads you to your NOI. Mm-hmm. Right. Your NOI times your income multiple is going to equal your valuation of the building. Right. So
income multiple is usually annual.
Right.
Annual. We're looking at annual income on that. Yeah.
Annualized. That's right. Yeah. So the income multiple in every market is different. Mm-hmm. Across the U.S., when you hear the word cap rate, it's a 5 cap, right?
Just so on 5%, average.
Right?
Yeah.
What that translates to is saying that, let's say you were to buy a building for $100, right? Cash.
Okay.
That means that you're going to bring in about $5 a year in income. So what I like to do is I like to look at, the NOI and say, okay, it's going to take me 20 years to get back my money, right?
Yeah.
So $5 times 20 gets you your $100 valuation.
Right.
So that's what I like to use in order to value a commercial asset, because then you can kind of compare that. Okay, something sold down the road and it was 20 times the income.
Right.
And someone comes to you with a deal that's 15 times income, meaning it's 5 years less if you were to use cash. Mm-hmm. You could, you see that's a better deal, right?
Then talk to me a little bit when you say class there. I know, we got class A, B, C, and D. I don't think there's any others. Maybe if there are, no one talks about it because no one wants them. But there's this idea of, classes of buildings, A, B, and C, D. There's several different ways you kind of, different directions to rate opportunities by that, kind of looking at the NOI and stuff like that. And so the idea is, a lot of times you can take a look at NOI, see and basically see, okay, can we improve that to basically improve that valuation to a higher class, A being the highest. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if we take this Chevy Chase building, for example, when we took over, it was true, Class C minus, right? So it's like workforce, it had 40% vacancy.
That's a multi-use structure, right?
That's right. So it's mixed use. So a little bit about, background on the Chevy Chase building is it's 5 retail tenants, and then there's 31 apartments in the back.
Okay.
And when we took over, there was the retail was 100% occupied, right? When you're looking at commercial, and specifically retail and triple net leases, triple net means that your tenants cover all your expenses, including taxes and insurance.
Okay.
Where you're able to create a steady base of income, very predictable, because usually the retail leases are a lot more long-term, right? So they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. So you're able to project that out pretty consistently of what your income's going to be on the commercial side. Now, that provides a very good base of income. And when you look at the apartment side of it, that's where your value comes in. That's where your added value comes in. So when we took over, it was, true Class C minus, where it's like, a lot of them pay cash, 40% vacant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of deferred maintenance. There's a lot of things the owner didn't, care for, and you can add value to it, right? So when you're looking at a commercial deal, can you go in and can you take a Class C minus building? But when you look at Chevy Chase as a whole, you can see that it's a Class A neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's very high income earning.
Yeah.
There's very nice retail around it. There's a lot of higher class people.
Sure.
And can you take that low class, Class C minus, and can you bring it up to be appealing to Class B, Class A people?
Yeah.
And with that, with each class, you're able to kind of jump rental levels.
Yeah.
Right. So like, let's say you start at $0 for a Class D building, you can maybe get $100 for a Class C, $200 for Class B, $300 for Class A.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're taking a Class C building and we are jumping up one class, $100. Right. Let's say,
it's almost a flipping mentality with the typical single family home in the short end of that aspect.
Exactly.
You're just looking at rent rates is kind of the key there, obviously.
And this is where I fell in love with commercial real estate, and specifically multifamily. Let's say, for example, you have a 100-unit building, and you're able to increase those rents $100.
That's
right?
big time right there.
Right. So that's about $10,000, right?
Yeah.
And an income a month.
Yeah.
You'd say over a year, that's $120,000.
Yeah.
Now let's say we use the income multiple, right? Let's say you're in a market where your income multiple is 20. That's $2.4 million in value created.
Yeah.
And that's where
it's go a whole nother level than, obviously the single family stuff and so forth. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a little bit like, so I know I've kind of talked a little bit, but we started kind of looking at the short-term side a little bit for me and my business partner. And then we kind of fell into the, we never even looked at the multifamily kind of more commercial side of things and so forth, kind of stayed away with it. And then it really just kind of fell in our lap, and this amazing opportunity that we had for a couple duplexes that I've talked about. And it's kind of a similar thing. Like I would say they're probably a B right now. I think we can you can kind of structure them by basic kind of, the type of people who want to rent type of thing. So, we can take it to another notch, whether it's a C right now to a B or a B to an A. And then we already know other areas or other places that have been improved in that same general area are already doing $100 more per door on rent type of thing. So it's very much one of those scenarios where we kind of saw, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure we necessarily had every single piece of that worked out to know that, but we knew the potential was there, and it was all validated as we were going through the process kind of a scenario. So probably not that, but it was kind of one of these options and deals where, especially in this market, you're like, okay, I know enough that this is at least a pretty decent deal. It might be a great deal type of thing, but at least it's a pretty decent deal. We got to at least start moving on it type of thing before maybe necessarily know everything.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing, especially when you're first starting out, right? The real estate is such the real estate industry there's so many unknowns to it, and the education and barrier entry is so high because it is risky, right? And if you don't know what's going to happen, and no one really knows what's going to happen ever, but being able to educate yourself and talking with other professionals and talking with people in the industry, you're able to kind of communicate, is this a good deal? Because I remember when I first started, I had no idea. I think it is, right? It's like during that period of 9 months when we had, multiple offers out and nothing get accepted, it's like, okay, what am I missing here, right? Am I doing something wrong? Is
sure.
it, how are these valuations differing? And to your point, just having that kind of getting your feet well, just going with it, understanding, okay, I can increase the income. I see buildings in the area that are getting higher rents. I see buildings in the area that are selling for higher. Let's do it. And then and it sounds like, with now number 3, with like that, the confidence is building, and you're getting to that, that next level.
Yeah, and that's definitely a story we'll tell here at some point. But by the time this comes out, we'll have closed on 3 duplexes that are all next to each other from 2 separate owners, and we did a hard money lending so I had to figure out hard money lending like on the fly and all this other stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that at some point, but we should hopefully within a span of 3 days close on the two different deals with the 3 duplexes total. So we're excited about it. I mean, we're jumping in. If you know me, like sometimes I just, and my wife's like that, I just kind of jump in all in type of thing sometimes before I knew it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So Landry, when was your first investment property? When was that?
This will be the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those listening out here, you could see that. Well, when did you get initially interested in real estate?
A couple of years ago, and it wasn't the right timing. I'd always wanted to do something.
So 3 years ago, had the interest in real estate. Within 3 days, you're closing on 2 duplexes,
right.
Not one.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like I want to expand on that story at some point for sure, but I don't want to like, again, we're a few days prior to that when we're recording this podcast, so I don't want to have to come back and retract some of my statements just in case. But what are you getting at there?
As you can just to pull that out. It just shows that a lot of it is the education up front, but it moves a lot faster. So like if I were to relate it to my story, it's like in the first 9 months, right? It's a long time.
Yeah.
But once you get that first deal under your belt, the confidence starts building.
Yeah.
So it's that's the kind of biggest thing is it's
definitely a key to attest to relationships too, and having that's maybe a different topic altogether as far as being looking at different markets in different areas, but yet you still need kind of local relationships a lot of times in that respect. But it was definitely from those that we kind of were able to acquire, kind of get these different options and from some different ways we acquired it type of thing. But as obviously COVID changed a lot of things, and I don't want to keep harping on that, but what has that kind of done with, I know probably more retail space is definitely kind of in flux a lot in some respects. What about like kind of rent rates and stuff like that? What have you kind of seen in the Kentucky market in that respect? Yeah,
Kentucky, as we spoke about earlier, specifically Lexington, is a very interesting market because you have the urban service boundary.
Yeah.
It's almost like Lexington is an island.
I call it the biggest small town in America because of how it's landlocked. They routed the interstate around the city, so it still gives you a little bit of that small town feel while still being kind of a big city. But as you figured out, if you don't know them, somebody probably knows them, kind of thing in this town.
Yep, and then there was something I saw like 2 weeks ago where they talk about 15-minute cities, where it's like, okay, you can get from one end to the other end in 15 minutes, and that is shown as a very well-developed city. It's shown as and Lexington was in the top 10.
Really? I've always heard the New Circle concept was great in concept and theory, but it's shown as a way to not design cities anymore and kind of trapping people inside of the circle as far as traffic goes. But
yeah, I don't in
know. Some respects.
Yeah. I was surprised when I saw it. Okay. I didn't think that Lexington would be part of it because it is,
really?
It is a smaller city, but it's up there competing with, they have up there, Boston, San Francisco, those types of cities.
It was on a list with major cities. Interesting.
Yeah. And that's where I was like, wow, it was one of the smaller cities. I'm like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I guess that's probably a good
to your
thing.
point that it's kind of a secret nationally in a lot of ways as far as what Lexington has.
Right.
Unless you're like an ESPN analyst that comes here for Kentucky Wildcat type of sporting events a lot of times, or if you're in the horse industry and come to horse stuff all the time. But
Lexington has such a unique economy, right? Because you have UK, right, which you have 35,000 students, a very highly educated workforce that is at your disposal here in Kentucky, and you also have a very strong tech presence that's starting to be built, over the course of the last really 12 to 24 months, and there's a lot of industries like you have Toyota up in Georgetown. You have the Toyota School of Engineering that's coming to UK, which is going to bring a whole new plethora of basically workers that are going to stay here in Kentucky, which is a great thing for Lexington. And just in the last year, rents are up 8%.
Okay,
right, in Lexington.
As far as just anything commercial, or are we talking more strictly multifamily?
Strictly multifamily.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're saying rental rates in the area, and over the last 10 years, there just isn't enough housing being built. And a big reason for that is because of the service boundary. There's nowhere to build, outside of the city. So what happens when you have an island and you can't build out? You have to build up.
Yeah.
And what that happens is a lot of these infill locations will start to see values increase more rapidly because of that infill area, and it really is going to induce a lot more walkability. I hear a lot of stories of 20 years ago, people wouldn't want to go downtown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
100. So you've heard that? Yeah, I would definitely test that. You growing up here, you didn't go downtown unless the Wildcats were playing at the Rep.
Right,
Thing.
And that's totally changed.
Oh yeah.
You have the soccer stadium coming in. You have the brand new.
Yeah, I hope that happens. That would be huge.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I know some people that are not banking on it, but definitely utilizing that knowledge to potentially, hopefully, increase. Same thing, a class of different properties in downtown. It'll definitely raise everything for sure. It's interesting.
The whole soccer stadium growth trend has been really interesting because you see that in many major cities now, like Cincinnati. It's taken over a lot of areas in Cincinnati. Have been totally revitalized. Louisville, same thing. When you look at like Nulu, right? So when you're looking at a market and you see how other markets have very similar attractions that have just been built, and you've seen what's happened in and around those attractions, you can leverage that. Because what's going to happen is most likely the same thing will happen for Lexington. Because
it's a growing market for sure. It's not.
It's
not receding. That's
it is.
Means.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as you're part of one of the investors in that Joe Chase. Do you have any others that you're owner or involved in at this point in time?
No, so that's the one deal that I'm a part of. So we're looking actively, still here in Lexington and branching out. One thing when I first started was I focused. We were very broad in our focus, but now we're very focused and specifically, Kentucky, Lexington, and branching out over to Cincinnati, Louisville. We want to break into markets like Nashville, but it's being patient because, as you know, the valuations there are crazy. When you're looking at different classes of building, the Class A stuff is trading for the same exact rate as Class B and C.
Right. Yeah, just because of the demand right now.
Right. So there's a lot of investors and money out there that is chasing real estate, and you're seeing a 2020 build trading for the same income multiple as a 1965 build with galvanized plumbing, and a lot more deferred maintenance.
Sure.
And a lot more capital that needs to be infused. So there's a big there's a lot of things happening right now in the market, and it's careful to stay patient and do what makes sense for you.
Yeah, and it always play out for sure. I mean, the market's always the market. I mean, you just studied it, ebbs and flows. You got to see where is it going, where is it moving. There's always opportunity, and it just changes sometimes where that's moving or where that's going. Any interesting side hustles or things that you do on the side that you're interested in?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of poker.
Okay.
I love the World Series poker. It's always been my dream to be able to play in the main event.
Okay.
I haven't yet, but one day I will. I think that would be very fun to do, to go to Vegas and be a part of the main event and play some poker.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with, I don't know, I feel like it's just the risk to it, right? I mean, it's a lot of probabilities and math and
what's the buy-in for that?
$10,000.
Oh, okay, so it's not. I mean, it's still a large number, but it's not like I was as crazy. I was thinking maybe.
Nothing crazy. But the winnings are $8 million. But it's all at that point it's all luck, right? Because to be able to survive 7 days playing 12 hours a day, there's got to be a God on your side in order to get there.
What's one of your favorite places as far as food wise here so far?
Food wise, actually
local places.
So breakfast, so coffee, right?
Okay, we're going through all three.
Huge coffee.
I like this
because it's one of those things where the Kenwick Table.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me. I need to get down there.
Yeah, it's a new place, and it's in the Kenwick neighborhood, and it's just a single family home that's been transformed into a coffee shop,
which attests to you have to go through the city to kind of
rezone it.
Yeah, rezone it to be able to even do that. But it's in the middle of a neighborhood, which is an awesome concept.
Yeah, it is, and it's a great place. They have some bourbon there too, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bourbon bar next to it. They're like inside of it.
That's in every place here.
Yeah, and then I like bourbon in Toulouse. I mean, I think that's little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
That's a great place to go to, Bourbon and Toulouse. I'm a huge fan.
And the Manchester area is pretty cool. I know we mentioned that before and talked about that.
Yep. Over there.
Goodfellas.
Huge fan of Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't. Who would have thought that?
And that's a test to another one, like a building that was literally a dump. Like no one was there. I remember taking like those cheesy, like serious photos, shoot type of things with, back in my music days of like, college, thinking you're just like, you look real serious in a band photo kind of thing. It's just like this abandoned like building that's like falling apart, and then someone's like, no, let's do something with this, and saw that vision. And that's really what it takes a lot of times in changing some of the classes of these properties or so forth, is seeing something potential, seeing the potential that's there that no one else has really seen.
Mm-hmm. You're taking imagination. And that building just recently sold to U-Haul.
Did they?
Yeah. U-Haul.
The big one. Yeah.
U-Haul is going to buy that. And then there's also, if you go down there, you'll see there's a 125 unit hotel
that's coming in. Yep.
So it's right next to the industrial park, which is interesting location.
Yeah.
Right. But you've seen it. I mean, every time that I go there, it's packed.
I'm just mad because I'm a big fan of the Rheingeist. Have you been to Rheingeist in Cincinnati?
I have not. The beer.
Yeah. Brewery. You need to go because they have like this rooftop thing that overlooks the city, bar up on the top part of it and everything like that. I'm like, someone needs to do that with that building, and I don't know why no one's thinking outside the box, or maybe just there's some other barriers to why that's not happening. But I'm like, that would just be awesome. I mean, I have 3 kids, so I'm not going out a ton right now with little ones. But I'm like, that would still be cool. I would still try to get over there if they had a rooftop bar on top of that building or something like that.
Oh, it'd be so
with a brewery.
Oh yeah, I'd go there.
Yeah. There you go. What's some of your favorite things about Kentucky, though, since moving here, to wrap it up?
There's so many good things that we've talked about, already with, I love just the atmosphere, right? Just the people, the culture. California is very, go. There's just so many people. When I was in San Diego, it's very hard to, be able to meet with someone and, they kind of point you in a direction, but there's just so many people like them, and there's so many movers and shakers in the city that it's kind of, you get kind of, you're one of many. Where
I'm sure like you meet somebody, but it's hard for them. Here in this town, people just know other people, or I at least know the person even if I've met them, where I'm sure in a much bigger city, you're like trying to piece things together in a lot more. Yeah,
no, you hit the nail on the head. It's completely right. It's like when I first moved here and I would meet someone, they'd be able to, within 3 people, they could tell me, like a guy that's like, doing stuff in the city, which is like, you don't get that anywhere.
Yeah.
And everyone here has been super welcoming to me, and I've been very, thankful for everyone to, embrace the Californian.
Yeah. Hey, apparently, I think I read we're like one of the nicest rated states in the union, so I'll take it.
Yeah, it's true.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, can I just talk more about commercial real estate, multifamily, and so forth? Where can they reach you at?
Yeah. I love this business. I love to share any way that I can help, just because I know that, 2 years ago that I was, I didn't know really where to go, right? And I wanted to learn, but I'm happy to share any experiences that I've had or to point you in a direction that can benefit you, and just kind of share from my experiences. And the best way to do that is just, call me or text me. Mm-hmm. My phone number is 714-403-9465, or shoot me an email. And that's D as in Dylan, Palmer, Palmer, at urbanrenewalpartners.com.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We hope everyone has join us next week on the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Dylan, I appreciate your time today, and thanks for coming on the show.
Landry, thank you very much. This is awesome.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.